What's up, everybody? So we've been doing a lot of drum tracking here lately, and I just wanted to look back on a session I did a few years ago with the wonderful Matt Roberts, who was the original drummer in Mild High Club, and he was recording drums on a buddy's record from back home in Minnesota, and he came here. He picked us, lucky for us, to track the drums on it. So he brought a couple warm audio mics, but we mostly used stuff that I had lying around, just my normal setup, which we'll go over in a second. But here, let's listen to what the raw drum tracks sounded like. The raw sounds we got, just mics, little bit of EQ on some things going in, compression on like one mic, and then did we do? The only mic that was compressed going in was the crotch mic. I was just hitting it quite a bit with the DBX 560A over there, up in that little snack box rack. So this is what the raw drums sounded like going into the box. Pretty cool, pretty good sounds. Nothing's too harsh at all or anything like that. And then I did a little mixing on it, some more EQ and a little bit of parallel compression, a trick I'll show you that I like to do in a second. But this is the process drum sound. Keeping the overall vibe and flavor, but just making everything a little bigger, a little fatter sounding, with EQ and compression, cutting out any like low mids that just kind of muddy the sound. We recorded kick and snare through a Warm Audio 273 EQ. I love any kind of Neve 1073 preamp on just about anything, especially drums. So I know we had kick and snare going through that. We had, I think at the time I had those Warm Audio 84s going just through the preamps inside the Audient ID44. So it got us a nice clean overhead sound, which those preamps matched well with the Warm Audio 84 clones, because those are not a super bright mic, so that was a good pairing. And then for the mono kit / mono overhead mic, I kind of usually put it, I don't know if you can see it out there, that little circular mic, it's Cascade Fathead. I kind of have it's above the kick and snare in front of the kit, but angled down, kind of pointed more towards the snare. But that's going through this ART tube preamp channel strip. So I love pairing ribbon microphones with tube preamps. So we've got the tube preamp, and this has a lot of gain, which is great for ribbon mics. Got the phase flipped on that, and then I always do a little bit, this has an optical compressor in it. I always like tap the compressor a little bit on it. I'm usually getting like 2 to 3 dB of gain reduction, 4-to-1 ratio. Pretty up the middle attack and release, nothing too fast, nothing too slow. And then a little bit of EQ, just getting rid of some of the highs, the high mids, and ducking a little 80 out of that mic, as well as some ducking out some 300. And then I don't know if I don't think I had this warm audio preamp yet, so we didn't use that at all, I don't think. And then my crotch channel for my crotch mic, that's always a Shure Unidyne 3, and that always goes through the Sound Sculptor 1073, the 573, and the polarity is usually flipped on that. And then I usually juice it up pretty well through the DBX 560A. I'm usually getting like 6 to 10 dB of gain reduction on that mic. And then what else do we do on this? Oh, and then the rack tom and the floor tom. This has been my chain for a while. I have the rack tom and the floor tom going through the Tascam M308 console. And then a little EQ going on there, boosting some lows around like 80 to 100, and then cutting out some ugly mids, and then boosting a little top end on those. And then did we do the smash mic? No, I didn't do the smash mic on this. And then yeah, but my little trick here for mixing, getting these tones. A trick I learned a while ago, sometime last year actually, while I was trying to figure out how Dave Sardi got really good like mono imaging of drum kit on the first two Jet records. And I don't know if this is exactly what he did, but I was looking up on the forums and I found that somebody had suggested, I don't know if this is what he did, but it gets me pretty damn close to the similar sound of just a really great drum sound, especially in the mono domain. So you compress. Oh, I actually have those muted right now. Hold on. Let's open that up. That's with both of them unmuted. It's just a little more forward. But basically what I'm doing is I'm sending the kick and snare to a parallel auxiliary. Sending the kick and snare to a parallel aux track, just the kick and snare, and compressing it a decent amount, nothing too crazy, maximum like 7 dB of gain reduction with a Fairchild. I really like this IK Multimedia Fairchild 670. I use it on a lot of things, but it's really great for this trick. And then, yeah, I'm hitting it pretty hard, but I'm using it in parallel, so I'm just blending it in. For the kick and snare, I've got quite a bit of it in there. And then I've got the same thing on another parallel track that I'm sending all of the close mic to drums to, as well as the crotch mic. Man, we didn't do a room mic at all for this drum setup, and we did about like 6 songs, I think. We just kept it pretty dry. But then all of the drums are going through another parallel track of the Fairchild 670 emulation by IK Multimedia, the 670. Really great. I love using this on a lot of production. So this one is just a little slower on the constant, so it's not quite as fast. And then this is what all the drums are going through. And this is just getting like 2 to 3 dB gain reduction, not too much. And this is just blending in a little bit underneath everything else. You can see I've got it like, it's much lower in the track than the kick and snare one. And the kick and snare one has a little tighter transient response, so I'm doing, because I want that attack out of it. So it's the left the time constant on the kick and snare is set to 1. And yeah, that's pretty much the only other thing I'm doing is I'm doing some on the individual tracks. I've got some EQ and I've got some, I don't think I'm doing any other compression. Yeah, besides those parallel compressions. I'm just doing some EQ. So like the kick has some IK Multimedia EQ P1A, Pultec style EQ, just boosting some 8K on the kit and some 60 with a bandwidth of 10, just pretty wide. And then I'm doing some more EQ on the kick with another favorite plugin of mine over the last year and a half is pretty much everything Pulsar Modular is making right now, but specifically the P450 MDN EQ, the Sidecar, and their Stevenson emulation tape machine. They're all fantastic. It's something I've been looking for in plugins for years, with getting the stereo imaging and depth that you get with analog equipment. And you get that in a plugin with the, I find with this EQ, the Sidecar, and their tape emulation plugin. So I've really been enjoying that. So on the kick, I'm just boosting a little 3K, digging out some 500. You know, we dig out a lot of 500 on toms a lot, but I found, you know, toms are shells just like the kick drum is, and so sometimes I find also cutting some 500 out of kick drum works well. And then I'm just boosting a little more low end on the kick at 50. And then the snare, I just have a Pultec EQ. I'm boosting some 10K and some 100. Still pretty wide Q here, so the bandwidth is at 10. Not cutting anything. I'm not doing the cut trick at all. I'm just getting some more top and some more bottom out of the snare. And then the toms, let's see, I'm just boosting some 2.5K, which that's an interesting frequency for me. That's not usually what I do on toms, but I don't know, it worked here. And then we've digging out some 500 and then boosting some 100. I'm sure I'm doing something very similar but slightly different probably on the floor tom. Yep, almost the same settings, just maybe a little more 2.5 I think on the floor tom. And then, oh, there is one other thing getting compressed. I compressed the mono room mic, the fat head. I compressed that. Let's see, how much compression am I doing on that? Like 5 dB gain reduction, nothing crazy. Let's solo it. So with it in, out, just getting a little more compression out of it. I didn't want, for this album, is kind of a little bit of like a 80s-y feel on certain songs, and I didn't want the overheads to be too compressed, so those are just EQ'd. But the mono overhead I usually kind of use as like a flavor mic, so I did compress that some more than also some of the compression I was getting on the way in. And then let's see. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't EQ the mono room mic at all. A lot of times I'll EQ some high pass, some low end, extra low end out of there if I think it needs it, as well as somewhere around 80 hertz, and then I usually cut out some more like 300 or something. And something I found that early on in my career that was a mistake is when I first started, I was boosting top end on like overheads and any kind of cymbal room mics, and a lot of times you don't need to do anything on room mics or overheads in the sense of boosting. Pretty much majority of the time now, all I'm doing on overheads is cutting lows and low mids out of them because I don't need it. I'm getting it out of the other close mics. And then let's see, for EQ, again, the Pulsar Modular P450 MDN EQ, which is very similar to like an API. It's modeled after an API, the Rumors console, which was, I think that was that studio in Sausalito, California. I forget what it was, an API console, but I forget the console. But this is very similar to a 550, I think, API EQ. That's kind of what it's based off of. So, yeah, sounds great. So let's see. All I'm doing is high passing at 80 and cutting out some 400. That's all I'm doing on both of the overheads. And then usually I would have this bias control up a bit just to get some more flavor out of the EQ, but it doesn't look like I did that on any of these for this tune. It just didn't really need it. And then what else? And then yeah, I'm not doing anything on the crotch mic because that was already getting a lot of the flavor I want. This is I'm just getting a lot of beater kick and then some side / under snare from that crotch mic, and you can hear it's already decently compressed, and I just am blending that in a bit underneath the other mics, so we don't need a ton of it. It's just another like flavor mic. So that's pretty much it for this drum session we did for these 6 songs a couple years ago. You can walk out into the live room and just see what we would have done. So I had Shining Nothing in here the other day, and they're coming back to do some more drum tracks, so this is the drum setup we were doing for that. But yeah, this is pretty much what it would have been. Different overheads, but this Ludwig 65 Ringo kit, with that fat head is the mono room, and we were trying out some different snares the other day, so there's no snare there. But crotch mic, 421N, one of the OG Sennheiser 421s, and then for rack tom we've got an EV. What is it? An N357, I think, is the model of that guy. That thing sounds good. So yeah, and then on kick, for that session, for the session with Matt Roberts, we did not do an outside kick mic, but there is a Beta 52 hanging inside this kick drum, so that's the kick sound. All right, and so that's pretty much the setup, the recording, and the mixing of the drums that we did for that Mathew Roberts session a couple years ago. So if you guys have any questions or comments, leave some comments down below as questions, and if you want us to do some drum tracks, recording or mixing for you guys, just email revotonestudios@gmail.com or hit us up on our website. All right. Happy tracking, mixing, and making music, everybody. Have a great day.